Good evening. This is Sean Childs of fantasyanalyst.substack.com. I thought I'd share last week's experience in the DraftKings Sportsbook prop market. I've been playing in the high stakes market since 2004 for fantasy football and baseball. I've been pretty much a DFS player for football mainly since 2012 when DraftKings kind of came on the map and playing FanDuel and stuff like that. Kind of play with a smaller bankroll, trying to get a big score. Had one fortunate day in November 6th in 2022 where was fortunate to win, $250,000, two destination final seats worth like 62,500 each. When flew out to what was it that year? It was in New Orleans, and had a great time there. And then one single entry for 100,000 and won a 3-team max for the entry fee was 150,000, won another 100,000. So last year, I looked at the sports book. Do the projections. I've been doing it for a number of years for different sites, full-time fantasy. I was at Sports Illustrated for a little while, and the last year and a half or so, I started my own site to try to get myself out there and build an audience. My projections don't kind of match up with everybody else, and I kind of do it a different way. But during the football season, there's 18 weeks. I'm going to have 4 or 5 weeks that I'm going to be in the hunt. And when I'm in the hunt, when I'm playing the DFS or DraftKings, I might be able to potentially get a nice score. But the problem with the DFS market is, especially when you're playing the $1 Million Maker for $20 or $100, whatever it is, if you play that, your return is like 30 to 40%, unless you hit on your single lineup. So in 2002, I just kind of made an effort to try to get to the destination final, and then kind of switch gears and was playing in that single entry for 100 and the other one for 150. But last year I was doing a parlay, and I thought, how could I subsidize my fantasy DFS stuff? And I started doing props, 5-player props at Underdog, and I was fortunate. I did it 13 times for $200 during the course of 18 weeks last year, and I hit two 5-player parlays for 4,000, and I had 4 wins and a push, which ended up being 2,000. So on the prop market, I had 10,000 in winnings. I lost 2,600 for that. That particular thing I was trying to execute there. I lost some a little bit before the season. Didn't do that well last year in the DFS market, but at the end of the year, I was crossing over to DraftKings Sportsbook. I don't spend a lot of time there, so I wanted to. I was trying to do the touchdown thing and the odds, multiple touchdowns, and try to get, bigger odds and big pays with parlays. And I guess I come from a mentality that, I grew up at a younger age. I called for a year when I was probably 18, 19, 20, called the bookie and bet $25, $50, $100 a game for a year. And, I ended up going down at the end of the year when the Red Sox lost the World Series in 1986, and I lost, I had 1,500 on the Red Sox, and I lost the last game for 3,000. I had to call dear old dad to bail me out, but whatever, it was an experience, and it kind of ended that way. I dabbled with it, betting a little bit here and there for, number of years, but over time, I knew that I couldn't win betting the games. I worked a little bit in the 2000s, like a middleman for bookie, just collecting a little bit of money and stuff like that. Had some clients that I kind of serviced, and I saw the other side of it. And if you're picking the games, I'm going to have a much chance, or the home team's going to have a much better chance of winning. So I don't technically want to be a person that's going to come out there and give you picks and like I'm going to bet on the games unless I research something. I just don't think that's in my wheelhouse. But I do think that because I do the projections, I got a view of each team, and there's going to be weeks, like I said earlier, that I'm going to get it right, I get it wrong, and some teams I got a good feel for some weeks, and some others I won't. But the player props gives me the opportunity to use my projection in another way. So last December, like I said, I looked at the touchdowns, and I actually just thought that the receiving yards was the best way to go for me to try to get. I'll do a 5-player player parlay and get some odds mixed in where I can turn a small wager into a bigger pay, and hopefully see how it goes. So when I started doing my baseball, my football content this year, I was, doing a job outside of work, so my normal routine is kind of broken. So I started a spreadsheet, and I'll pop it up right here, to show what I'm talking about. So that's my DraftKings thing right there. Sorry, that's the wrong one I'm looking for. So I started a spreadsheet that I want to show that you know, each week what the over-unders were for the each player for the receiving yards, most of them anyways. And, I wouldn't catch the Thursday night games because I would, being a little too busy. I wouldn't get all the lines in. Sometimes they were, I wasn't there and they weren't up in time. But anyways, so what I'm going to show here is, week one, Marvin Harrison, his over-under was 60.5. They were betting the over. He only ended up getting 4 yards, and it was a loser across the board. If it was in green, like Marvin Harrison week two, everybody after a bad game wasn't on him. His over-under is 57.5, but he ran the line. His over-under, if he gets 80 yards, it's plus 225. If he got 90, it was plus 320. If he got 100, it's plus 475. I had him projected for 73. He ended up with 130. So those were winners across the board. I had him projected on the over, so I was right. But you can see all these other things that are in the pink color, or they were all under. So what I wanted, so I wanted to look at this information, see what's going on, and at the same time, I was going to put the odds over here as like, minus 115, and the juice on these props are usually 30 cents. So if it's minus 115, it's on minus 115 on over under. So they kind of have the advantage, but they are going to make some mistakes in the lines that you can take advantage of if you're right. So as the weeks have gone on, this information has become a little more valuable because now you can see some stuff. You can see obviously week 5 that all the Atlanta players pretty much just had great games. If a quarterback throws 50 times, it's going to be, and the receivers are going to have a better opportunity. But I don't want to get into this. But this spreadsheet, I just worked on it for tonight for week 6. And this is what I'm kind of looking for. I'm looking for 5 players that I can put a prop together and potentially, get a big score. So anyways, without getting too involved in that, that's my baseline. I have other information I'll get into. So this is my page for DraftKings Sportsbook. Last week I had 2 prop bets. And they were the one was a 5-team parlay. The odds were plus 741,000. So for $25 wager, I could have won 185,000. The other parlay was a 5-team parlay, and it was plus 43,300. So I would have won 10,500 or something, 10,800 or something like that if I got all 5 player parlays to come, player props to come in. Sorry about that. But I wagered $25 on each, and what I'm looking for is that a normal player that's a good player that is over under is 60 yards. I upped his target number to 80 yards, and by doing that, his odds become much higher. So you can see in this particular case, Garrett Wilson. To get 80 yards, he was plus 230. DJ Moore was plus 300. CeeDee Lamb to get 100 yards was plus 205. Jamar Chase, 90 yards was plus 180. And Brian Thomas to get 80 yards was plus 285. So after the 4 o'clock games, Garrett Wilson played at 9 o'clock, the 9 o'clock game in London. He got 101 yards. So I was alive. I had the 80 yards in there. And then, early in the game, Thomas, I think it was in the first quarter, hit an 85-yard touchdown. He was already in for the 80 yards. DJ Moore was like 2 for 57 with a touchdown. And Chase caught a late first half touchdown to get with him in position. So anyways, after the first games, all 4 of these props are in. And the same thing, I come over to the big bet. I have Brian Thomas to get 100 yards plus 600. Jamar Chase, so I added 20 more yards on that. So he was 80 on the other one, 20 on this one. So Jamar Chase, 110 yards, he's plus 370. CeeDee Lamb plus 120 yards, plus 400. DJ Moore, 100 yards, plus 650. That was a really good number there. and Garrett Wilson plus 500. So for this particular parlay, it was $25 to win 185. I was probably really fortunate is that I didn't win this parlay or either one of these parlays, but all these games were played early, and because I did it at DraftKings, or I think you can do it at FanDuel, at the end of the 4 o'clock games, there was a cash out. The one for that I could potentially win 10,000, it was $3,200. So I knew that the second one would potentially have a buyout and a cash out. And when they put it up, you can see right out here, I wagered $25. I won $33,300. And as soon as I saw it, I immediately took the cash out. I know I could win 185,000 if this came in, but I'm in a position where I'm in between careers and I need to rebuild my bankroll and survive in the winter. Same as someone, what everybody else in life. So with that 33,000, I have a lot more chances to wager and potentially get one right. And maybe they play at the same time and I could possibly hit. At the same time, the other one was the parlay was let's see, the other cash out was was $3,200. So I took the cash out on both. It wasn't like like let's shoot for the second one, whatever. I was like, just take the money and run. The game's late. I didn't even look at the weather report. It ended up being bad, but like I said, took the money. So anyways, the goal here was for me to find players that potentially could beat their yards. And this week, they were all good players, and they were all in. When I did the projections, Jamar Chase was the number one receiver. Brian Thomas was the second rated receiver. So they both came in, and I actually had Flowers for Baltimore rated really well. He was 7 for 111, but unfortunately in these props, you can't use both sides of the game. So I have to use a different game. And then, that's what I think. And the other players that I chose is that I had the projections okay for DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson, but I kind of put them in the player, these players are pretty good and they're kind of due. Wilson was playing a tougher defense, but it was, even though it seemed like it was on the road, it's in London, so more of a neutral site. And the Panthers defense wasn't really that great, and the Bears offense hadn't been that good, but he had the potential to have a big game. What they're saying is like for him to get 80 yards, he's going to do that 1 out of 3 games, roughly 1 out of 3.5 games or whatever it comes out to be. So, I know he's capable, changing quarterback. So, I went back to him, and then CeeDee Lamb, same thing. He hadn't had 100 yards yet. So I figured he would be a focal point of that offense. Pittsburgh's kind of a grinder game, and it wasn't ideal because Dallas usually plays better at home. So anyways, that's what I was trying to do. And I was fortunate in Bayo, but that was my goal. So I started this year. I did 5 weeks of information on this player prop thing. I wagered on my, for the season. I'm going to go over here. There's account information that shows this. Let's see my stat sheet. So you could see that. I think it shows it here. Yeah. So this is for this month. Let's say this year I have so that's for the whole year. But let's go back to this. So last month, I put $4,000 into mostly DFS stuff, but I had a minimal investment in the sports book. So I had $225 last month, and this month was last week. I had 50. So I put $275 into the sports book trying to do these parlays that I just laid out here. But I am really playing this type of stuff to try to subsidize my DFS stuff because I like that part of the game because it's part of my research. So, but this month, I turned $50 into $36,500. For my career, for the DFS and sportsbook, let me see if I can do it all time. So I think you can do both of them. Let's just let me just get out of it. I think you can. I'll just go out of it and come back. Sorry. So in my career, I've been playing DraftKings since 2012. And I didn't have a big bankroll. I've kind of had different people and split stuff, but I've wagered $168,000 over 12 or 13 years. I did not deposit that much money because when you put in some money, you win money and you rotate it back. But my winnings are 389,000. So I am up at DraftKings in the sports book, and they're 389,000 or a profit of 211,000, 220,000, whatever it is. But I've had, I hit a big parlay and I had one DFS thing, but that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build my bankroll, or take a shot, and I'm going to hang around. I want to hang around, and potentially be a big score. So this isn't for everybody, because if you look at potentially doing like if I won $33,000 parlay, that might not happen for 10 more years or something like that. It might not have happened for whatever, because I can do 7,000 more parlays for $50 and I'll still be up. But, hopefully I can get one right at some point. And by doing the longer odds, my chances are actually diminished. So I just wanted to show that what I'm going to do. But if I was going to bet 50 or 100, how long would it take me to get that high? And is it even possible? I don't believe I could ever win that much money doing that. So I'm just living a different world and a different outlook of that whole situation. So what I'm going to go back here, I'm going to go into the NFL. I did the research somewhat for this week. I've got the layout of the spreadsheet, and I just want to kind of go through this and show how I'm putting this together and how I'm doing it. And you can do whoever you want and kind of look at it same. So I'm going to go to click on NFL, and it's going to come up the game lines, but I'm going to go to receiving props. And what I'm going to do is I'm looking for this situation where this is Brian Thomas. If he gets 25 plus yards, he's minus 1,100. If he gets 120 yards, he's minus 1,100. So what I want to do is, do I see 5 players that can potentially be there? And at the same time, because I won last week, I could be maybe I'll do 100 a week or something. But the ideal situation for me now is let me pick 5 players and do their straight over-unders line. So I'm going to switch to the other receiving over-unders. And if I pick 5 players potentially of that, and I'm going to bring up 5 players that I think that are viable without just doing it quick, and I might change this a little bit. But so I'm going to just Control F, and I'm going to pop out a pop-up screen. So rather than me scrolling all this thing, I can just get to the player that I'm looking for. So if I just hit Polk, his over-under for New England is 26.5 yards. I think that he's looked like he's a talented player. There's a change of quarterback in New England, and so they don't know what to make of it. He was on the field 100% of the time last week. He almost hit on a game-winning touchdown, and he just looks like he has the talent. So if the Patriots can fall behind, and if they can throw a little bit more, he can potentially hit a much higher prop. So if I just hit, over 115 yards, we got one player over here, Jalen Polk minus 115, and that's the first player. The next player I'm thinking about is I was thinking about. I wish I didn't have the piece of paper here, but this isn't gonna be exactly, but I want to walk through this thought process. I had a conversation with myself, a friend of mine earlier today, that tight ends in the DFS markets hadn't really come in. So I just know that McBride has been kind of quiet for Arizona, and I can go back and check on it, but I'm just going to do this to show what I'm trying to do here. So this is McBride's over-under is 49.5, and it's minus 115. So I pick him. It adds in a parlay. It's a 2-team parlay. It's plus 249. So Green Bay's favored in the game. High scoring over-under. Possible chaser game for Murray. McBride, getting 50 yards. He's probably going to need 5 catches or so, and I think that's viable. And the same thing, I like Laporta from Detroit. They're playing Dallas, another high-scoring game. He's been relatively quiet. I think the bye week could have helped him a little bit. They're betting him a little bit. He's got 40.5. That's a pretty low number, and he's minus 120. So I'm going to go with this little flavor of these two kind of tight ends coming in, but I can only pick one player in this Detroit Dallas game, and I know CeeDee Lamb is a player that I like. to hit his number. So I could potentially do him. He's 88.5. I think he probably goes over. But just for, to do it, to show it, I'm going to put Laporta just to see, see what the odds come up to. So that's 3 players. I was interested in Franklin from Denver, but when I was looking upstairs, he didn't have a line for Denver. That might be up in the morning. I thought that would be pretty low. So now we got to go back to the games. I'm gonna, just because I have those 2, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna go and look at my sheet and go down the games and just I'm quickly gonna try to find somebody that stands out without taking too much of your time. So Arizona, we already picked McBride, so we can't really do anything there. Atlanta, all the Atlanta guys came in last week is on the road, so their numbers aren't really that high, but I'm going to stay away from those for now. One of Baltimore's could come in, but I do think it's going to be a little more running there and control. But these are my projections in this column, which is just a reference point, and that's the over-unders. I'm going to tend to be over because I'm projecting the best outcomes where the sportsbook are putting a line where they think what the player is averaging. If he's going to get 1,000 yards for the year and they played 16 weeks, he'd be around 60. Then they're not putting some high line and try to gauge it. If it's a favorable matchup, it'll be bounced up a little bit. So that's what I'm trying to do. We go to Buffalo. I don't really like anybody. Don't like Carolina. The Bears. I think that Odunze game came on high. I had to double check my projections there on that because that's a lot higher than I thought, unless I'm reading the wrong number on my V lookup there. So Chase, big game last week. I'm a big believer in sometimes the 2-game winning streaks. Amari Cooper potentially, but the quarterback play for Cleveland has been so bad he could get scratched. So I don't know what's going on there. We already did Detroit. Denver has got barely any lines. We can't pick Detroit. We can't take Green Bay because we already have a player on the other side. So I'm going to go to Tank Dell here. But actually, I can't take Tank Dell. He's a player of interest too, but he's playing against Polk. So Dell or Polk are the 2 players in that game I'm interested in. The Indy players aren't up. They weren't up when I did it a little earlier. The Jaguars, they're playing the Bears, decent defense. So I'm not really gravitating towards that. Chiefs are off. The Raiders have some injuries. Trey Tucker over here is a player of interest. This line probably is different. So let's just go to Tucker to see what his line changed to. So Tucker, next one, Trey Tucker. So he's 37.5. And they're betting the under, but they have some injuries. They have to throw to somebody, and he's most likely going to be the second receiving option behind Brock Bowers, whose over-under is 51.5. But I'm going to go. They're betting the under for some reason, but I'm going to just take the over. I think he's a big play receiver. He fits what I'm kind of thinking about because the guy can get one play and hit it. So that's just a starting point. But this, like I said, this isn't what I'm going to lock in when I'm going to do it. I'm doing this to show you what I'm trying to do here, just to kind of walk through. I will put on my article who I'm actually going to pick, but I want to just like I said, go through it. The Saints, I think a decent play is Olave. His over-under is 50.5. He normally would be a little bit higher, but a backup quarterback, I don't know where he's going to be. So in this particular case, rather than digging too deep, I'm going to just go Olave. Just to show. So same thing. I'm using that Control F to do it. So rather than me scrolling down and looking for these players, Chris Olave 49.5 has actually dropped a little bit since I put the line up there earlier. So I put up there. So if I got a 5-team parlay, it's 2,187 yards. I'm going to do it for $25. Enter, and it pays $571. So I am not doing this play right now, but that's just to give you an idea. If I did those 5 players, so I have Tucker, Olave, McBride, Polk, and Laporta. Okay, now I'm just going to go show you what my next stage is, what I would go to. Now I'm going to go to the same 5 players. So in the stagger thing, I should do this now. If I do this one and hit the over-unders, I win 500. But if I hit that 1 out of every 5 weeks, that potentially could cover my bets if I do 100 a week. Okay, so that's that. But I didn't do that last week. Obviously, I would have not hit it because Lamb didn't come through. But so So now we're going to go to receiving yards. We're going to back out of this. We're going to X out of all of this just to start over again. And we're just going to show the power of the multiplier here. And now we're going to go the same thing. We're now Polks. We're going to go to 40 yards because I already looked this up. And I think that in his case, I'm looking for 210 at the low level. So we put him in there. And I think I'm not going to go to 60 because I don't trust him on the second one, but the second one would be 370. So we're going to put him in there plus 210. That's a good number for us to be looking for. Olave, who is, a guy that's a volume receiver, but he's playing with a unknown quarterback. But the Saints play pretty well offensively for the first 2 weeks. So, oops, if I could just type right, I could get this in there. So Olave is, so here we are. If he's 60 yards, he's plus 155. 70 is 255. His over-under is 49.5. So I'm going to go the 245 because I'm going to go 20 over. But I could be, if you want to be a little conservative, go lower, but I'm looking for a little better payout there. So 245. And then we're going to go with Tucker of the Raiders. And so his over under and the other one was I don't know, was it 36 or something? But anyways, if he gets 60 yards, I think because I don't know the injuries and stuff like that, I'll just do the plus 175 on this one, be a little more conservative, and maybe just go up to 10 on the other one. It's not going to be as big a ticket as last week if I do that, but I'm not trying to look for exact odds. I'm just the realistic chance of that person hitting it. McBride, let's see, he was around 50, so let's go to 70 plus 225, and then we'll do Laporta. And Laporta is kind of favorable, kind of interesting because that if that game breaks right, it could be a chaser game, and that'll work out. Same thing. Let's go. I think I only have to. He was 40, so I only have to go to 60 here. So now it's plus 3,200, basically. So if I bet $25, enter. Oops, it pays $8,000 on this one. So that's what like last week's it was a little higher odds, but that's realistic. So if I go back now. Now I would have a parlay for 571, another one for 8,244, and then we're going to X out of this, and we're going to go back, and we're going to go up 40 yards for these players, and it could get a little tricky when you're using tight ends, especially like running backs. The odds for like Gibbs' odds is pretty good for 40 yards and stuff like that. I think Gibbs is. Like if I wanted to go that route, and I do think he's an explosive player, like for him to get 40 yards is plus 295, he could potentially hit on that one play, 50 yards plus 500, 60 yards plus 900. All he has to do is hit one reception. But, like I only can, like I said, one player in that game. And I think Lamb is the guy, even though he has the higher projection. I just think that he hasn't gained over 100 yards. He's kind of due. If he gets to 100 or 110, he probably makes it. But anyway, so we're going to go back to the same players. We're going to go to Tucker. We're going to go a little bit higher. So what was the last one? It was at, I went 50. So let's just go, just for the show of it, I'll go plus 70. And that's a pretty big number for him, but I would think because it's kind of cloudy there and, their top two receivers are out, even though he's going to get more chances. He's still a player of interest. He's going to get more chances, but he actually showed the last couple of weeks. So I think that, the player has to show that he's playing well. That's kind of important. And he's playing at home. Let's see, Tucker at plus 290. Then we put in Olave. So he's going to be like a 90 number on this one. We can go through, let's go 80s, 380. What was he, 50? Let's just go for the plus 500. That'll put it in range last week. Let's go McBride again. And so McBride is, his over-under was around 49. So we're talking like 90 here. And that's a lot for a tight end, but he's going to need like 10 catches. So that's, but like I said, if it's a chaser game, but you would prefer, I would prefer a wide receiver where I think that he can catch a 40-yard pass, where these tight ends last year were really good at volume, something like that. So I got McBride. Sorry. should be putting Laporta. I can't even think. So Laporta. All right. So Sam Laporta is over under was 40. So we're gonna go. If he's 80 yards, that's a big number too. But that's a pretty good thing. So we got who we got left here. Polk, and I think we're only gonna go to 50 on him because I don't know if the offense can support something. But so 370. So now this parlay is really close to last week's. This might be like 175,000, and it's 176,000. So this is what I'm trying to do. I mean, there's only, you figure, 21 weeks in a football season. If you count the playoffs, but realistically, I'm going to do this over the 18 weeks. I'm not going to venture too much into it, because there's limited games in the playoffs. But anyways, so I'm going to look at my projections. I'm going to put together the parlay. I enter this, so if I chose to do these players, I go in 571, 8,000, or 176,000. If by chance some of these games, if one of the games was later, I could potentially get the cash out, and there will be a cash out. But I didn't do it last week thinking like Lamb was playing a later game, but that's how it worked out. So I think that wide receivers can make big plays. The game, especially the game you're looking for, is something that can go kind of back and forth, and it needs to be an over. If it's somebody like the Jalen Polk of the Patriots, it's going to be most likely be a low scoring game, especially if New England can grind it out on the ground. Rookie quarterback, we don't know what he's going to do. Houston needs a win, but if Houston jumped out early and New England had to throw a little bit more, that'd be favorable to a rookie receiver. And I'm positioning both tight ends to be in chaser game, but there's other players in those games that I like. So like I said, this is more of to show you what I'm doing. All I have to hit is submit, and I would enter this, and I'll probably be dumb if I don't do it because I actually just showed 2 parlays and whatever. But I want to fine tune and have the players that I want. At the same time, I want to show so now when I'm thinking about this stuff, right, I do put information. I have this massive spreadsheet, and I've been pushing some of it on my fantasy my Substack page. And I'm not going to go here for this. I'm going to go to Excel. And so what I would do is what I did in the off season, I kind of put together this little bit of the game stats I put in by hand. I want to show how teams had done against certain players. So in this particular case, because I use the tight ends, I'm going to shift down here. And this is the defense if stats points are allowed to tight ends by the defense. Some teams have played 4 games. Some games have played 5 games now. But so Dallas is right now the Cowboys, and they are ranking the top 10 in receptions allowed to tight ends. So that, you could think that's a tougher schedule. They haven't added any touchdowns. They only average 9.53 yards per catch. Some of these other ones would be a bigger number. So say Green Bay, they've allowed a lot more catches, but, smaller distances. But at the same time, when you're looking at that information, you got to say, well, who did they play? Like the Dallas their best pass rusher Parsons is going to be out this week. So that's, the tight end doesn't have to chip as much. And what I would do here is I would go to the game logs. Ooh, I got to go figure out which direction to go this. So, because I'm, trying to, think about this stuff and make good decisions, I would say, all right, if I'm going to take, the Arizona tight end, like who has Green Bay played against, and do they have a tight end? So I'm going to go down here, and this is the game logs for Green Bay, but the tight ends over here. So they played Philadelphia with a decent tight end, but they had their other 2 receivers. They played the Colts with no tight end. Tennessee did pretty good, 8 for 67, with not really a big tight end there. They played the Vikings with not really good tight ends, and they played the Rams 9 for 68 with Parkinson. That really not great tight end. So this would be most likely the best tight end that could be the most active. So that is decent and could be favorable, and stuff like that. Their defense has been pretty good as far as allowing points, but they could potentially score. And the same thing, we can go to Dallas up here. Dallas played Cleveland 7 for 71. I think their top tight end was out. The Saints kind of rotated. A couple different guys really didn't use them much. They used Hill, ran it a little bit, 738. I put him in as an outlier rusher, as a wide receiver or whatever, and it's just a column to separate some information for me. They did okay against Likely and Andrews in this game, but that game was Dallas. Baltimore's way ahead. Giants don't really have a tight end. Pittsburgh, doesn't have a great offense. Use tight end 6. So this would be the best tight end they would play as well. So that's the stuff I would look at. The split information, but this is just information I'm doing on my site to help make different decisions. So ultimately, so last week I did turn, had the fortunate score. I didn't get the 5-team parlay, but this is my game plan that I went into this season trying to do. So 5 weeks into the season, I hit it. Will I hit it this year again? I doubt it. Could I potentially do it again? Yes. But if I play the straight over-unders, I think my chances are better because I have information and I am relying on the true what they're giving for odds. So hopefully I see something a little better. And at the same time, I got to make better decisions. And when I'm looking at the game, I got to, is that game going to potentially go back and forth? And I also have to look at let's say like this week, Baltimore's playing, Washington. People like, Washington's going to chase on the scoreboard. Their receivers are going to come in. Well, I mean, if the Ravens can control the clock and they keep Washington on the sidelines, have long drives, run the ball, and just control the game, that other offense is going to be on the field. And the same thing would be happening as if another team kept turning the ball over, had 3 turnovers, they lose 3 or 4 minutes each possession in time of possession. And it allows the other team to control the clock and maybe get that edge like 37-23 or something. So, can the other team score? And the other thing I used, made a mistake a couple of weeks ago. I used Dotson for Philadelphia, who was going to be the wide receiver 1 because A.J. Brown and Smith were out, but he hadn't really shown anything, and they weren't really throwing to him. I was just playing because he was going to be a wide receiver 1. So I think it's important that the player has to show something too and be trending in the right direction, or it showed at least some explosiveness in the last couple of games. So and that's what stuff I want to, I got to get better at making decisions, and that's ultimately what we have to do here. So this is what I am trying to do. This is what happened last week. Like I said, this information is on my fantasyanalyst.substack page. I will add this to the link so you can see it on the. I'll post this on YouTube, and I will add it to the article when I'm doing it, and I will add my parlay to that when I'm doing it. I'll give you a couple other options. Like I said, if there's 2 in a game, but realistically, I'm going to do one 5-team parlay, and I'm going to probably do the exact same thing I just showed there of the $25 for the 3 different levels, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can do all right. And at the same time, if somebody wants to play the individual games, they're welcome to do that. Like I said, I'm not trying to be know-it-all and I'm going to be pushing a bunch of things. And if somebody asks me, what do you think about this Thursday night game? I'm like, I'm not wired to I'm not playing a prop on a Thursday night game or doing a parlay just because I want the action. I'm waiting for Sundays when I have all the information. I'm doing the projections, and I'm trying to put together where potentially I can get this big number parlay. And this may never happen again, but we'll see what we can do. So that's what I'm going to show there. Kind of long-winded there, about 38 minutes, but hopefully that shows how people that can see what I was trying to do, and shows them how to enter it. And when I give the parlay, they can kind of know where to go to, and hopefully. So we'll see what happens this week. Good luck to all, and just another Sunday.